Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is not a head football coach at a university, but he is the founder and host of D1 Rejects, Kobe Manzo. Kobe, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. And both my parents were educators, Carlo. I don't know if I've told you that before, but they were both at the high school and middle school level, respectively. And the two first professions that I ruled out was teacher and college football coach. Honestly, that was probably number two. So much respect for our educators and so much respect for football coaches, but man, that is a gig that I don't think I could ever pull off, to be honest with you.
No, the stress. This job's stressful, and we get to talk about football. I get worried, oh man, somebody's not going to like what I have to say. I can't imagine being responsible for 150 plus kids, making sure you get the wins, making sure you get to the postseason, the recruitment. It's just more hats off to them. Now,
yeah, man, but I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Now, I normally would throw you in the time machine. We would talk about how you got here and work our way to today. I'm going to go about this a little differently. We are going to kind of do a time machine iteration, but before we go there, I have a question. November 15th, Fenway. How you feeling? How you feeling about that?
I keep saying, man, I don't think it's actually set in yet. We're going to be right in the middle of what they're calling Fan Fest in the outfield from around 9 a.m. Eastern time to 11 a.m. And they've got what sounds like, I was on the phone with them the other day, almost 2,000 people already signed up for this Fan Fest. It's going to be this big kind of ordeal and pregame type of environment in the outfield. And so that was the big draw. And what I was, really excited to bring for them is let's add something to this Fan Fest. Let's try and inject some more excitement into what is already going to be an incredible day. Like whether or not small school Saturday or Division I Rejects is there, this game's going to go on. It's going to be fantastic. The environment's going to be electric. What can we do to add to it? So I think it actually hasn't sunk in yet. I mean, we're flying out next week to go and do this thing. I don't think it's really going to set in how cool of an experience this is until we're bringing our stuff into the outfield in front of the Green Monster. But I'm just so thankful and appreciative that we get to do that. This all just stemmed from an interview that we had with Coach Dunaway from the Coast Guard Academy, and hearing his story, that was something that came about organically. Reached out to him, had him on the show, and after that they had kind of just thrown it out there, man, like, hey, would you guys even be interested in coming out for this thing? And I'm like, man, you don't even have to ask.
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly. Sign where and how many times?
And for those of you that don't know, November 15th will be I believe it's the Secretary's Cup, correct? It's
yes, sir, the 45th installment.
Coast Guard versus the Merchant Marine Academy. I just can't. I was telling the fiance this week when you guys announced it, I was like, these guys are going to be at Fenway. And she looks at me, she's like, is that like Fenway? I said, there's only one Fenway. They're going to be at Fenway. I don't know how else to tell you and make it clear. This is big. This is a big deal. So
that'd be something if we just pulled the rug out from everyone and it was a knockoff, right? That'd be something.
Go play at them. The guys that do the wiffle ball. You go. You're broadcasting at Mini Fenway.
That'd be incredible.
Now, first off, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations on a hell of a season. I mean, these game day, the River Falls Alma game, the Platteville lacrosse game, those two, just those two are what I'm going to focus on right now, is just the excitement that you have from the coaches and the fans. How did those things come about for you, and how did that, compared to day one, what the goal was, how did we get here?
That's a loaded one, man. I think it all goes back to building relationships, and I was fortunate to play running back up here at Northern Michigan University. And for those who know anything about my story, is I did almost no playing. I tore my knee up 3 times, and I did not play a lot of football at the college level, man. I was on the team for my whole time here, and I spent a lot of time inside the facility, but what I did during that time is make some really good relationships, and I've been very fortunate with those guys to have some pre-existing relationships. I've known Janice over there at lacrosse for quite a few years, and Coach Couch had recruited recruited me out of high school, and him and I go way back. Coach Walker, of course, we went down there and did the facility tour with those guys, and now him and I have a great standing relationship, and it's been so unique and so special. I mean, go down the list. Coach Buer and Coach Allen from this last weekend at Northwood and Findlay. Both those guys, I had their numbers from when they were texting me trying to get me out on campus in high school, and obviously ended up at Northern Michigan. But it's been so sweet and so unique to have this full circle moment with a lot of these coaches, and you watch how emotionally driven some of those conversations are. I go back to Coach Buer this last week, and what a special moment that was. And Coach Couch in our first installment of the show, talking about the opportunity to coach his sons. Those interviews and conversations are the single most proud I've been of any piece of work that we've ever put out on D1 Rejects. And it's that, to me, is the most important part of what we do. The social media and the video content. The other part that I'm sure we'll talk about eventually is kind of just the donut or the carrot on a stick to get people in, and then trick them into coming to see some fun storytelling and some really emotionally driven kind of narratives and concepts. So it's been a very, very fulfilling season already. And like you said, we still got some more shows to go.
Right. Now, what about, not only did you go for football and you played at a smaller school, so that obviously factored into where you are today with the highlighting the small schools, but why multimedia journalism when you decide, when you go into school and you're deciding on that track for the 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, a good one. I didn't really know exactly what that was going to look like. I knew I didn't want to work in news. I had done that before, and that was just not for me, man. I did the sports report up here at a station in Marquette. Love the people there. Did not like the gig. Knew that was not going to be for me. But I was really fortunate, man. I had a broadcasting intro class in my high school. Lake Orion does a fantastic job. Shout out Roger Smith and company. But they really, and I already had this idea of kind of where I wanted to go with it, but they help really refine that. And so as going into school, I knew exactly what I was looking for in a program. And I'll be the first to tell you that Northern Michigan University is not exactly your Syracuse or like an Ithaca that I was looking at that's got a very good program at the Division III level for sports broadcasting, but they've got a multimedia journalism degree. That is all I needed, because I just needed the piece of paper that said that, and then I can go and doing things like this, I can go and try and put together a resume and a portfolio for myself. But for me, I don't know what the dream goal or end goal and dream job is, so to speak, in this. I just, as long as it's having the conversations like we talk about and doing the storytelling driven pieces, then I'm all for it, man.
Well, and about the stories, because of your experience, harp back on the experience of being a small time football player or a small college football player, how does that affect who you talk to, the coaches, the players, the stories that you and the rest of the guys at D1 Rejects are choosing to tell out there?
Yeah, I mean, originally it was just whoever was in my immediate network, man. You look back at the podcast episodes, we're recording, and a lot of them are actually audio only, so you can't even see, but we're recording in like a kitchen, a living room, a basement, a vehicle, my dorm room, and it was just anyone who was basically available. Like if you had a heartbeat and could put together a couple of sentences, like you were coming on D1 Rejects, because we just had to keep doing episodes. But as it's moved forward, obviously you build some of those relationships. Those people go on to their respective playing or coaching careers at different spots, and that network starts to expand a little bit. Now, I think it's different. I think now the objective in terms of finding stories is, well, one, who's playing the best football right now? Two, with the best people and the most interesting kind of, and the strongest culture and the things that you want to highlight in that regard. And I think three, and maybe something that's underappreciated that we've started to do a lot more of, is like, what teams have we not highlighted on the show? Like you look at this last week, getting the quarterback on from CSU Pueblo, a team that maybe hasn't been represented so well on the pod, or Monmouth at the D3 level. That's the first guest in Nate that we've had on from the Fighting Scots. So I think those are kind of the three things that go into it, is like who's playing the best ball with the best dudes and maybe hasn't been featured on the show before. And then I guess eventually someday we'll get to the point where we've talked to every team in the country. I guess you just repeat, because at that point, everyone's graduated and moved on. So start at the top and roll back through, and you could do that forever. I mean,
see, I'm at that point. This season we had Gino back on. It was a nice way to roll into the season.
That's awesome.
Bellhaven's got a new coach. Union has a coach that we've had on the show, but we had him when he was at a different school. I got to figure out how I'm going to do that interview and not ask him to tell me the same stories again.
Yeah.
When you're talking as a group, what's the building process like week to week? What are you guys doing in those in the team meeting, the production meeting, we'll call it?
Sure.
What is that? What's that conversation like?
Production meeting is really generous. It's just a text group chat. Nothing too crazy. Maybe an impromptu FaceTime call if we got something that I want to talk about. Seth and I are definitely like phone call people. Like we don't text a lot. We just call throughout random parts of the day. And he's been hilarious because he's just constantly brainstorming about, the other day he's like, Kobe, what would it take for you to do this full time? And I'm like, Seth, I've never thought about that in my life. Like never even considered. And he's like, that's why we're so good together, because that's all I think about. And I love that. But in terms of like a week to week process, it kind of depends. Like right now, it's really crazy because of obviously the small school Saturday shows, and that week of production looks so much different than doing like a pre-recorded show like we did last night and released today. For the pre-recorded shows, the first emphasis is always the guests. Who can we get on, and how do I set up and schedule those interviews so we can build around there? Then it's coordinating with the fellows, Drew and Tim for D2, Seth and Jimmy for D3, and my guy Matt at the NAIA level, and trying to find times where everyone is available, because obviously all of us have other things going on in life. So just trying to pin these guys down and find some time to talk about some games. And then let's get the framework. Let's get, okay, here's our 3 to 4 top games. Let's go find something fun. Like this week it was for Division II, Northeastern State lands a helicopter at midfield. Awesome. New Mexico Highlands is investing a potential $85 million in a new facility. What are those fun pieces that we can add and interject? And instead of, maybe just giving the recap, how can we spin it and put our take on it, or spin it and put a new twist on a segment? I think it's just constantly trying to grow and evolve is the biggest thing when it comes to that.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about small college ball that you guys kind of hope to be able to kind of put to bed? I mean, I know there's a lot, when we talk to the coaches, it's a lot of, you might be an inch too small, an inch thinner this way. You might run a 4.4 and not a 4.35. Your vertical might be X and it needs to be Y. What are those misconceptions that you guys see that you hope comes across that maybe, or that are not maybe, that are blatantly wrong?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have started to wake up to the fact there's just some really good football being played at Division II and NAIA and Division III football, right? Like I think people have really started to wake up to that fact, which is great. I'm all here for that. But I think the couple things that come to mind right away, the first one is that, maybe small school football doesn't have the same pageantry and traditions of the big D1s, the ones that are showcased on a national basis and to a very wide audience. I'd actually argue that we got better, man, in terms of all three of those divisions, right? Not just one singling them out. I think we've got some better and more historic, whether it's rivalries or traditions or stories inside of these levels, simply because it's a much larger sample size. So you have so many more teams than just your FBS or even expanding that out to FCS football. You have such a bigger sample size, and that, of course, makes way for a lot more stories. And the other one that probably comes to mind is that small schools don't invest in their athletes. That's probably the worst one, because you go out, and we've been fortunate to do a couple of those facility tours now, and that's something I want to continue to expand on. One, because it's my skill set. Video production is certainly where I feel most comfortable. And two, because you go and watch that video at Alma, the video at River Falls, and you see these teams and the way they have invested in terms of their facilities and their infrastructure and their staff and everything that they do to build around these guys, even little things like the gear they're provided on day one or the training staff and nutrition they're provided. There are so many ways that these schools are investing in their athletes, and they get very, very unique at the D3 level because of that lack of scholarships. How else can you entice these student athletes to come on campus? And unfortunately, it's not all schools. I'm aware of that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Northern Michigan is going band for band with Ole Miss. But what I can tell you is, like, we play in the largest wooden dome in the world. We've got 2 new renovated weight rooms. We've got, so many big-time facility upgrades, personnel upgrades in terms of our athletic staff up here. That's where I work full-time, is up at Northern Michigan. I think I've said that a few times, but just for people who maybe don't know. But I think that's the biggest one, man, is that these schools don't invest in their student athletes. I think for the most part, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Now, I have 2 questions there. One,
okay,
how does it feel to work at your alma mater? Because I ask everybody that works at their alma mater. So we'll go with that one first.
I think there's a very dangerous, and it sounds very hypocritical, but I think it's hiring a lot of alum is dangerous, because It's people that are so comfortable where they currently are, especially recent alum like myself. And that's why it sounds so hypocritical, but I think hiring recent alumni is very dangerous because you have people that might be very comfortable with the way the system currently stands. And I think at certain points in the development process of the athletic department of any leadership group or team or organization, the best thing could be an outside perspective to come in and shake things up. On the other hand, you have people that hold a very wide berth of institutional knowledge, stuff that can't be replaced, well, with the changing of the guards, so to speak. And we've lost some invaluable pieces at Northern. People that, yes, we filled the position a month or two later, but now, how long does it take person B to get up to speed where this person was here for 15, 20 years and they knew everyone on campus and knew exactly how to address each situation? So you have that institutional knowledge and that understanding and pride in the place that you work at. That for me is a really powerful thing. But at the same token, too much is dangerous because you got to have those outside perspectives and people that come in and stir what up.
Right. Coach Katz talked about it last week on Dingo Talk. He talked about how he kind of pushes coaches to go to other programs. The only college football they've heard for 4 years is him go out, get a different perspective, come on back in if the cards align. My other question for you, and it's more just I forgot to ask it when you pointed it out. Seth said, Kobe, what would it take for you to do this full time?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the thought has never crossed your mind? Or because there are rumors, we're going to address the rumors from the nosebleeds. They were asked, but there were rumors that, you're just trying to live your life off of this small college ball Saturday, and you're rolling in the dough, you're bringing it in left and right, state funding, etc. What do you say?
I wish, I'm not going to say I wish you could see my bank account, but you'd be pretty disappointed if you saw the in and the out in terms of D1 rejects, man. I can sit here and tell you very, very honestly that I'm very much in the red when it comes to D1 rejects, and that any money I've ever made doing Division I rejects productions or anything has been reinvested fully in the show. I've never taken a dollar and done anything else with it. And I guess to start the question, what would it take for me to do this full time? I have no idea. And I've definitely the thought has 100% crossed my mind. I'm not going to sit here and say it hasn't, but I've never actually sat down and put together, this is the roadmap to doing D1 rejects full time, because that was never the plan from the beginning. The plan was to have an outlet to start doing these conversations and really selfishly to start putting together a portfolio. D1 Rejects started for me to have a portfolio and a resume that I could send off and get that next gig, that next job. And since then, I like to think that it's turned from being selfishly for me. While it still is a great portfolio builder, I think it's turned around and, what can I do for the student athletes? What can I do for the coaches, the programs to help highlight those guys? But the money part of it is constantly trying to figure it out, basically. You know what I mean? We've been so fortunate with these game day shows that we're doing this year in that all the schools outside of River Falls is our pilot. So I didn't charge them, a dime. We showed up and did the show, and that was, I think, just really important that they just trusted this vision that we had. We had never pulled off one of these. We did the show at La Crosse 2 years ago. Obviously, you've seen both. I think it's pretty safe to say this is a pretty different production than 2 years ago. So for River Falls to trust that we had this vision that we were going to execute, and they didn't see anything beforehand really, because we didn't really have it to show them. I thought that was really special. And from there on out, these schools that provided us just with travel expenses to get down there. I don't profit off the show. I don't turn a profit really off of anything, to be honest with you. These schools have been super gracious and super nice to offset those travel expenses for us to get us down there, and so we can do this in a sustainable way, and I'm not just throwing money into a pit. I can't say how grateful I am for them, because if it weren't that way, we get to a show here or there, you're really starting to talk about the geographic constraints of what we'd be able to do. Fenway wouldn't really be able to happen, because that's a big undertaking. That's a 16, 17-hour drive that we're going to have the van get bussed over there, driven over there. The guys are flying in separately. This is a big undertaking. And again, I can't think whether it's the Coast Guard Academy or all the other schools previously that have helped us do that. But no, we don't. I don't turn a profit off this thing. It's I like to think it's really for the love of the game. We are having so much fun right now. And if D1 Rejects ever turned into the full-time deal, I would be just as surprised as you, Carlo.
Now, obviously not the first time you've sat down and collaborated with other people in the D3 community. You've been guest on other shows. What's the big surprising lesson that you've learned from those conversations with other guests or with other shows and hosts? You and I go back and forth at least once a week on just
Sure.
hey, how you doing, this, that, and the other. How have those relationships built, and what is that leading, as this next wave of broadcasters and journalists, so to speak, in this D3, D2, NAIA realm? What is the hope there with the collaborations? Because I think there's a nice kind of across the board. I think a lot of us have similar interests. We're doing it for the love of the sport, and we want to see each other succeed. So
100%, man. I've been really fortunate to develop some good relationships with people at all levels. You go to the Division II level with guys like Matt Witwicky and Chuck Bittner and the guys over at D2Football.com. Of course, you and others at the D3 level, and Pat, that's come on the show recently. He was electric, and we had a blast with him. Guys like Jason and Victory Sports Network at the NAI level. We've had the opportunity to just connect with all these different individuals. And I think the one thing I've learned about through all of it is that there's no one right way to do everything, right? All these guys have, although it might seem like the presentation of the information is similar in certain ways and different in others, I don't think there's one textbook way to get into this space. There's not one textbook way you've got to operate. And that's the really freeing and really fun part about this, man, is you get to drive your own ship, so to speak, and to see how all these guys have done it their own way, people like you, and how they've done it, your own way. And we get to take all that in and then put our own spin on it and drive our own thing off to a different lane, so to speak. So that's been the really cool thing is now I've got a nice network, I would say, of people that are passionate about a lot of the similar things that I am, but also learning from them. And Jason and I talk, again, like pretty frequently, and he's a guy that has so much experience. The same with Pat and some of these other guys. Like being able to talk with them and talk about the stuff they used to do, and then take that and that solved some of my problems already. Jason had done this touring kind of game day show before at a high level, and this was a big thing for the VSN crew back in the day. And so, him and I talked for hours before our first Small School Saturday show, because I'm like, man, I'm writing down what's every problem that you ran into, what do you wish you would have maybe done better, or what went really well for you guys that I need to check in on. So having those resources is really important, because I don't have it figured out. Nobody has it all figured out, and I think everyone's just trying to figure out what their right way in their own mind is of doing things.
Right. What's the goal? 5 years down the road? I mean, you guys have really expanded. You've really expanded just from 2024 to 2025. What does 26, 27, maybe even 28 look like? I know I'm getting ahead of myself. We're still in the thick of this one, but
yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a Seth and Jimmy question, because they are the big thinkers. Like, that's how our dynamic works really well, is that Seth and Jimmy are very much the big picture, big thinkers. This is where we're going. We're going to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And it just continues to like stack and stack and stack. And I'm just sitting here like, guys, we have a show on Saturday. Can we let's make this the best show we've ever had, and then we'll worry about the next show after that. And then, so I try and be the grounding force there, but I love that we have that. I love that we have that, those kind of opinions and that foresight. I think is really sweet. To more directly answer your question and not dance around it, I have no idea. I'm at Northern right now, obviously, and this job is, of course, always gonna, not always, but at least for the time being, as it pays the bills, that'll kind of determine what this looks like in D1 Rejects. And excuse me, Rick Comley, our AD up here, and our athletic staff, they give me a lot of flexibility, so I've been able to make a lot of these shows, but. Man,
getting choked up.
Oh yeah, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. I might need to get up. Oh, I need to get a drink, Carla. Holy cow. Give me 30
seconds.
My goodness. Oh my gosh. All right. I apologize. Holy cow, man.
No problem.
That just hit me.
No problem at all. That's hey, the nice thing about these pre-recordings, although I'm sure, the fiance does the editing, sometimes she may look at that and go, I'm just going to leave it there. We'll see. We'll watch them rant back and forth a little bit.
Leave it in. Leave it in. But I'll finish my My thought there of like Rick and our staff up here at Northern are super great with me. They're super flexible with me. What does that look like at the next job? I have no idea. In a perfect world, I keep doing Division I rejects as long as I can, as long as I'm having fun with it, as long as we're providing this platform for student athletes. And I think as long as all three of those boxes are being checked, I'm going to do this until the wheels fall off. That to me is the more direct answer for you.
Right.
But I'm not sure exactly what that looks like.
The last question that I had written out before we get to the, those misfits over at Voices, they couldn't believe you were coming on the show, so they really filled out the inbox.
Oh, come on.
I think they were excited that, more not that they couldn't believe. They were excited that you were going to be on the show.
Good,
so they
good.
filled out the inbox for it. But last question that I had before we get into those is for the listeners who want to support college players, D1 rejects, the D1 reject, your guys' mission. What can they do? Is it just sharing the posts and getting more eyes on it? Is it telling as Pat says at the end of a lot of his episodes, tell a friend to tell a friend? What would you guys like from the D3 community specifically? What would you like for them to do to help you guys get this mission out there?
Yeah, I mean, Pat McAfee is the sole reason really I started this show. Like, I am a massive Pat McAfee fan. He's done some dumb things, and he's certainly owned up to it, and I'll never say I'm the next Pat McAfee. I'm trying to be the first Kobe Manzo, for sure.
Right.
But I agree with that, man. It's like, if you want to support us, it's not about, handing over a credit card. It's certainly about, like a video, repost a video, share it with someone who might, really enjoy what we have going on. Or maybe someone that's got an interesting story that we need to highlight. Like, we get random, kind of one-off emails or other people reaching out on social media all the time. And sometimes it's maybe nothing, but sometimes it's a really cool deal. And I'm glad these people reach out and connect. I'm never going to, leave someone on undelivered or unread that's trying to reach out, and whether they're trying to support or whether they're trying to plug us in with a connection or a story to tell. I think that's the biggest thing, man. Just the more people that genuinely enjoy this stuff, and the larger this audience goes, that's going to enable us to continue to highlight all these players and coaches and teams in a variety of different ways, man.
Absolutely. That was no tiptoeing there. That was a real nice right to the point answer.
Okay, good. I'm long-winded, but I think that kind of comes with the territory.
Well, it's the vowel. It's the vowel.
Yeah.
We'll just chalk it up to my audience base knows that there's vowels and we go off on tangents. All right. So from the Misfits way up there in the nosebleeds,
let's go.
There may or may not have been some libations that happened while these questions were being formed. So bear with me as I read out what they have to say. Moose Hogan asked, how can D3 football coverage outlets collab better with schools in order to help promote each other?
How can D3 football outlets collab with schools to help promote each other in terms of like other like school outlet type relationship?
Yes.
That's a good question. Kind of a tough one. I think for me, it's that continued relationship, right? And I go back to like River Falls, for example. We go down and we do that facility tour with them, and they float this idea of, oh, you guys are doing this game day show? Maybe come back. And obviously they had, I hope, a good experience with us being down there. That relationship grows. And they've become a really big kind of advocate for us, and they really help push the Small School Saturday and some other things that we're doing. And Coach Walker is a huge supporter of what we got going on. I'm super appreciative of him. I think it's just that constant communication and just building on those relationships is probably the biggest thing I can think of right away. And the second part of it is something that we're just starting to finally do is get there in person, right? Like, there's only so much we can do over Zoom. And that's been a challenge for us for a long time, being in Marquette, Michigan. At least that's where I am. Mm-hmm. So I'm so like landlocked, so to speak, in terms of it's hard to get a lot of these guys on the show. But the best way to help promote these schools and to build these relationships is by being there and learning about the people. We would have never had the conversation with the chancellor of UW Platteville, but she came on the show and she was fantastic. And what a great like energy and personality and a great ambassador of that university. That conversation would have never happened over Zoom. The same fire and energy probably is not going to come through a screen. So be there in person and just continually build those relationships. I think, we're trying to provide something that is mutually beneficial, whether it is our facility tours, the game day show, our coverage of different levels of football. And if we can truly build something that is at its core mutually beneficial, then it's going to benefit them and help them expand kind of their reach and their deals. And then it's also going to do the same in turn for us.
Right. This one's from Matt, our producer. When things are good or when things are bad, people normally turn back to their non-negotiables and their core principles. What keeps you centered specifically? Because there's a lot of noise, good, bad, indifferent. What keeps you balanced, centered? What are those principles for you that have kept you pushing forward with this D1 rejects?
Yeah, I mean, you could go a lot of different ways with this answer. I would say like the guys that have started this with me, right? The guys that have really been through a lot of different eras of Division I rejects, whether it was guys very early on in the dorm room, guys like Tyshawn and Jimmy and some of the other guys that were a part of the early stages of this. We go to the couch in my parents' basement back when we were doing the show with Drew and Hunter, and then other guys like Trev and Cade, and now, of course, Seth and other pieces. We still got a group chat with all these guys that have been like a part of the podcast throughout different eras of it, so to speak. And let me tell you something, it is very much not an echo chamber. If I go in there and say something stupid, they're going to let me know immediately. And if we do something that piece of content maybe that isn't their favorite, now they're going to be nice about it, but they're going to let me know. There is, like I said, it is definitely not an echo chamber. These guys are going to let me know their opinions, whether they're good or bad. And that, to me, keeps me centered. I know I got a great, whenever I have an idea or whenever I have maybe it's a bad piece of news or a really good piece of news, it's going to the family group chat, like my family group chat, and it's going to the D1R group chat. So those are the two places that is going. That's something that's really helped keep me centered and kind of keep me moving through this. I think the other big thing is, and Seth and I talk about this a lot in terms of production and those kind of things, is that whenever things are seemingly going good and you start to get really comfortable and in a rhythm with what you're doing, change something immediately. Change something, because the second you get comfortable, the second you get familiar with your current process of what you're doing, that's when you stop. That's when you stop climbing. That's when you stop trying to maybe go for the next thing. And it's not necessarily like, don't ever be satisfied. I don't want to maybe give that impression, because we're so proud of the product that we've put out there. But every week we talk about, how can this show be better? How can the Small School Saturday show be better? What can we do from a visual, audio, production, presentation standpoint, a relationship standpoint, to really improve this thing? I think that's been the other really big piece for us, man, is whenever we get comfortable with something, change something, because that's the only way you're going to continue to get better.
Is it tempting to respond to some of the noise that comes? I mean, I know that you specifically from maybe middle of July to as we sit today, there's been a lot of noise. Some people don't like capitalism. Some people don't like that you call it Small School Sunday or Saturday. How do you handle that? And is it tempting for you to respond?
Dude, it's so tempting. Like, I want to go on there and plead my case and tell these people, what I believe to be true. But I think it goes back to the deal of, like, there's no right way to do this thing. So who am I to go on there and tell people, if they believe that I'm doing something that is against what small school football stands for, or something that is not correct in terms of, this landscape, then that's their opinion. And I don't want to be the person to tell them that they're wrong, because that would in turn be reinforcing myself of, like, this is the right way to do this. So I just don't want to become that hypocrite. I can't sit here and say that there's no one right way to do something and then go and turn around and go on Twitter and say, this is the way we have to do it. So yeah, it's super tempting for me sometimes when we have some people that disagree with the way we do things to go on there and give my side of things. But we've been dealing with that forever, man. We call our show D1 Rejects. I knew right away people were not going to like that, and that's fine with me. I know Zach Keene, shout out Zach, a former quarterback at Northern. He was doing the show with me like the first episodes. He's like, after episode 3, he's like, Kobe, I think we need to change the name, dude. Like, this is, I don't know, it just feels weird. It feels wrong. And I told him, I was like, man, the two things I'll say always, and I say it now too, I told him the same things. It's like, one, I'm not putting that label on everyone else. The guys that do the show, we are the D1 Rejects. I'm putting that label on myself, and I can call myself basically whatever I want. I'm not telling everyone in the country, you are all Division I Rejects. That, to me, is the opinions are coming from the D1 Rejects. That's where this all kind of comes from. Very much like your voice is in the stands kind of idea, right? That's just from the perspective. And the other part about it that sounds slide, it sounds maybe a little, whatever else, is that, love it or hate it, you're going to remember the name Division I Rejects. That is a name right there that captures your curiosity. I hope it piques it, and you're going to check out a show. And once you watch that first show, once you watch that first interaction, my hope and my goal is that you realize very quickly, oh, these guys are about it. These guys are really trying to build these people up and do something the right way. So, in short, super tempting to respond and get into all that, but I've got really big aspirations for my personal career and also where Division I Rejects can go, and I will not let that be dragged down by others' opinions and by other people who do not share the same level of aspirations that I have.
Well, and you kind of, that ending there kind of, it took a little bit of wind out of my sail for my follow-up, but I'm going to shoot it anyways, which was
go for it.
Why do you think there's so much blowback for a show that is done at the Division I level? And I not tooting your horn or trying to blow smoke, but you guys have put on a hell of a production for 9 weeks now. I mean, you're traveling, you're doing a live broadcast, you're doing it for multiple hours and with all the moving parts of the coaches and the chancellor, as you pointed out, and the different things that you guys do with the graphics and everything else. Why do you think there's so much blowback? What isn't that the goal is to shine the light on these small schools, which is what they are in comparison to what, as all of us that went through football recruiting and everything, we all know a D1 or bust guy. We all know I'm going to go to D2. I'm going to be there for a year. I'm going to transfer up. How many of those guys really do go D2 and then transfer up? There's a lot more of us down here in D3, D2, and NAIA. Why do you think there's so much blowback?
I wish I had an answer, man. I genuinely don't know. I think the only thing I can go back to is, for those people that maybe disagree with what we're doing, like, I would love to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Right. I would love, I'm very open to, having a good conversation. And, as long as the person in that conversation is open to having a back and forth conversation, right? And I'm not trying to preach down to you, and I certainly don't want to be, receiving that on the other end. But if anyone's, has a differing opinion about what we're doing and they're open to having a conversation, I'll give out my cell, the email, whatever, however you need to get in touch with me, man. I'm very easy to contact. I think I put myself out there, and with that, putting yourself out there is a tough thing to do. And I think that's the biggest thing that scares a lot of people from creating content in the first place, because your first episode is going to suck. And it's going to suck really bad. And my first episode is still up on YouTube. Every day I'm like, man, I want to take it down. But every day I'm like, no, because someone needs to see that and realize that the show that I did in September of 2020 is so much different than the shows we're doing in November of 2025. And so that's really important to me. But I think, to answer your question directly, again, I don't know. I really struggle to figure out why someone might be vehemently against what we're doing, but I'll always say, like, I'm very much open to clean and proper discourse, man. I always respect differing opinions, and like I said, there's no one right way to do this thing, and that means by proxy, my way is not the right way.
Right. What's the favorite part? All the bells and whistles, all the shows, what's the favorite part? Your favorite part of what you're doing right now?
That's a really good question. In a broader sense, Small School Saturday, no question. Like, right away, the live game day show, that environment, that feeling, that bringing of a production and excitement to a campus, right away. Like, that has been so fulfilling this year. But again, I talked about it earlier on, those conversations with the coaches, and the ones especially that I've had some maybe personal connections to. He talked about Coach Buer and Coach Allen at Finley this last week. And you go back a week before, you're talking with Coach Wooster, who was recruiting me at Wayne State when he was there, and now he's the head coach at Grand Valley. And him and I have, really stayed in touch throughout this entire process, and, seeing what both of us have gone on to accomplish. Now, he's the head coach at Grand Valley. I'm doing a podcast. I'm not, and I'm not blind to that, but it's been really cool to have those moments and to really get to the root of the why of why these coaches and why these players do this, and shining that. So I think in a broader sense, Small School Saturday, in a much more narrow and focused sense, it's those interactions and the digging deep into some of the why and some of the stories of these people that we get to have on live.
And then my last question is, what's been the positive responses from players, coaches, parents, alumni, administrators. What's the feedback that you've gotten on the positive side?
Man, it's been incredible. It has been, and that's something that grounds me too, is because for every person, and thankfully there's not a whole lot of them, but every person that, maybe disagrees with what we do or how we operate, man, there are so many people that have been so appreciative and so thankful for what we've been able to bring to these different institutions, especially when it comes to the game day show. And that is really special. Like getting a note from the father or mother of someone that we've had on the show very recently, or someone we talked about on the broadcast, or maybe they reach out and they say, we did a really good story on an offensive lineman from Northwood last week, and had a family member reach out and said, that story was fantastic. Like no one has really been able to put that into words and help showcase his journey to Northwood. Like, could I please have that video? Yes, absolutely. Like that's unique. That's really special. So hearing from people that are friends, family, or just otherwise closely tied in and knit with these other people, that's been a really cool deal. And from the school standpoint too, we've had a very gracious host, and I think the feedback, I'm not going to speak for them, but I get the general sense that they've been very appreciative of what we've provided and what we've been able to bring to their respective campuses.
And then Kobe, I end every show with the same question. And you're an open book, so I imagine this is probably going to be pretty easy for you. Was there a question that you were expecting me to ask you today? And if so, how would you have answered it?
No, I think the big one was the money thing, right? Like that's the big hot topic. And like I told you before, like there's no question that is off that is off the books or off the record that we can't get into, man. I don't want to hide or gatekeep anything, and that's something that I'm super passionate about. I've been able to connect with some other people that are just starting to get into this space, and whatever resource I can be for them is fantastic. So I don't really have one necessarily. I mean, it really was like the money and cost and those kind of things. And the way I'd answer it is just by telling you how it is. That's, I'm not here to hide anything. I'm not here to lie and deceive. Just here to talk about football, and it's pretty basic when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it.
Right. Well, listen, I want to say thank you. I want to point out to everybody else that when the idea for Voices came up, you were one of the first people I reached out to. We put the first episode out. For those that don't think that he's an open book and he's going to shoot you straight on good, bad, and indifferent. It's a 3-paragraph text. These were the good things, man. We really like this. Fix some of these things. These things right here, I don't fix them a little bit. And then the indifferent was, well, I think our first episode we had 9 guys on screen. You were one of the first ones. I don't know how you're going to manage 9. It's a long season to try to manage 9 personalities and how we're going to do it. And so you've been a support for us as a group. You've been you and I have talked again. We've talked a lot throughout this year. I'm really thankful that we've been able to make this connection. I see we get a special guest behind you. I like that's going to add that'll add some points there. Oh yeah.
This is Buzz.
And I want to say good luck the rest of the way through this season. Enjoy the hell out of Boston and Fenway. And we're all going to be watching. I really appreciate you taking the time. And for everybody out there, this is the season finale. I'm going to be focusing everything for the rest of the year on DingoTalk, or on Voices. But I wanted to make sure with 1 week before we get into the real nitty gritty of the season.
Yes, sir.
Well, the restart of the season, I guess you will say, because it's dance time. I wanted to make sure we got Kobe on, and we just had an open conversation. So Kobe, I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.